Alistair is the Manager of Integrated Transport Engineering at Vic Roads. He leads a small team of people who are changing Vic Roads policies, processes and practices so that Vic Roads delivers integrated transport outcomes as a matter of course. Alistair brings a broad perspective to the role with qualifications and experience in traffic engineering, urban planning and mechanical engineering. Alistair is going to talk about bicycles in growth areas.
One of the challenges in growth areas, of course, is how we're going to plan for bicycles, and in particular, how's Vic Roads going to allow for that with these arterial roads? Vic Roads has a certain jurisdiction out there, and it's primarily the arterial roads that I want to talk about. So the question is, these arterial roads, they're busy roads, let's face it. We heard from Jan about some of the problems about traffic and that interaction. What are we going to do for the future for people who want to cycle in these areas? These roads are typically 4 lanes, 6 lanes, typically at 80 kilometres per hour. They're the bigger roads out there, and the question is, what role do they play for cycling? I just want to explain what our current thinking is. We've actually said we need a clear and logical rationale for the bicycle facilities on arterial roads. Let's say, is it on-road, is it off-road, and why and how? We actually need to say, well, okay, what's the audience we're trying to appeal to in terms of cycling? Are we going to say, listen, it's not little kids, or it is the training cyclist? Who is it we're providing for out there? Austroads has 5, in fact there's 6, I've left out information, but 5 things to consider about space, surface, speed, sight lines and connectivity. And in an engineering sense, these are sort of indicators where we can assess whether the bike facility we're designing is fit for the purpose we intended. And really, safety is such an important issue. We must have regard, especially for, yes, us cyclists and pedestrians. When it all goes pear-shaped, it hurts. This way of thinking about data has been around for quite a while, and it basically says when you get hit, the faster the car's going, well, it's going to hurt more. And basically above 30 kilometres per hour, up to 50, 60 kilometres per hour, the chance of being killed or seriously injured increases dramatically. Now, if you accept that fact, you would wonder why we would ever allow a cyclist to ride on an 80 kilometre per hour road. It doesn't quite make sense. So, a way forward. Riding on arterial roads, high-speed arterial roads, have some safety risks, if you accept the slide beforehand. But off-road paths would really need to be designed differently because, hey, being polite about some of the off-road paths out there, some of them just glorified footpaths, really, and they don't really designed for the purpose I believe that they should be designed for. So to make off-road paths better, we'd actually have to design them to increase what I call the level of service. And the other thing to note for arterial roads is really, for cyclists and pedestrians, they are a barrier in themselves. You don't just dash across 4 or 6 lanes to get to the other side because you want to do something in the other direction. So really, because of the barrier, if we're going off-road, 2-way paths on both sides of the road with appropriate crossing opportunities is probably the most logical way to engineer bicycle facilities on these roads. If we look at those 5 things, space to ride, hey, we can do 3-metre wide paths, we can do a smooth surface, that's nothing new. Sight lines, I can think of plenty of examples out there where we probably haven't got sight lines quite right. I reckon there's plenty of space to do that better. Connectivity, in theory, we should be able to connect our network together and access key destinations. And the last one is speed maintenance. Now, speed maintenance is code for having to stop all the time. And we all know, as cyclists and as pedestrians, having to go, oh, yeah, okay, Mr. Motorist, you go next. Yes, I'll wait and pick a gap. Certainly, anyone who's travelled overseas, in the European examples, has seen, not necessarily upside down the other way, but certainly a much different bicycle network. So out of all those, the real 2 challenges are getting the sight lines right and getting what Austroads called speed maintenance. If we look at speed maintenance, there's 3 areas: side roads, slip lanes and service roads. I'm going to quickly touch on some concepts there to show what our thinking is. At side roads, this is side roads with arterial roads. It's nothing new. Anyone who's experienced European examples, bicycles and pedestrians have priority over the side road. A whole range of key design criteria there, but the one that is the tough one is maintaining the sight lines and the impact it has on property boundaries. So the Growth Area Authority says, hey, that's my land. Those blue lines are what we have to cut off the corner properties to ensure that the approaching motorist can see the cyclist, because the cyclist is going across the side road. Slip lanes. Now, people say we don't want slip lanes. And I say we only need one slip lane out there to need a solution to the problem. So slip lanes, yes, if we've got them out there. A whole series of design issues there. We've assumed some speeds, we've assumed some bicycle speeds, assumed some widths. The blue line is, again, the property boundary. And the key issue, again, sight lines and the impact on property boundaries. So I've assumed cyclists are coming around, crossing the slip lane, across a raised crossing, and having priority. And people are going, oh my God, a speed hump on an arterial road. Well, actually, it's not a speed hump, and it actually happens to be a slip lane where they're probably travelling about 10 kilometres per hour anyway. So we've got a few things to work through there. But these are, if you like, draft designs that we're using in VicRoads to actually test with developers and the Growth Area Authority and our own staff to try and progress this issue. Service roads, a key challenge. The challenge is we've got two-way off-road bicycle facilities with a one-way on-road vehicle movement. There's a range of options. None of them are particularly attractive. But the one that we're playing with is what we're calling an on-road separated bicycle path, and we're moving the parking to the other side of the service road. Now, the key issue with this is, Malcolm Daff would call it wrong-way cycling. I'm calling it the issue with contraflow bicycles, as in going the opposite way, not seen by exiting motor vehicles coming out of the driveways. And those people who have followed Fitzroy Street in St Kilda, similar issue there. So all these three have got their own little challenges, and overcoming those is one of them. So I've got 5 challenges here in 5 seconds. Accepting the impact on property boundaries and the sight lines. Realising that raised crossings on side roads and slip lanes are needed to focus vehicles' attentions and deal with the priority issue. Dealing with service roads and the unexpected contraflow of bicycles. Figuring out what to do with roundabouts. And the last one is basically achieving a high enough level of service to attract most of those riders who would have ridden on the road to be able to say, you know what, these paths are good. That's our aim.
Well done, Alistair. Very good.